Awesome, brother. Gary, brother, how you been? Welcome to the show. Thank you for being a part of the show. I know it's you've had quite a journey and making a decision to move out of the country. So, but first, dude, again, welcome, brother. Pleasure.
It's nice to talk to you. I wasn't aware that you had a podcast, so now I get to spread the word about your podcast. So
Fantastic, brother. As good to see you. I know the last time we talked was briefly, and you made a big move. And as again, I want to make the comment again that I love Nirvana. Went to their concert back in the day when I was a kid. Brings memories. So
never saw him live. I never saw him live.
Yeah, it's one of those bands where I'm so glad I did. Although there's so many other artists that I wish I had a chance to see. Like I wish, and we kind of took it for granted as kids, is Michael Jackson. I wish I would have seen him live, and I never did.
Yeah, you always think they're gonna be around forever. Like, oh, I'll see them next year. I'll see them next time, and time just kind of rolls and rolls and rolls. And next thing you know, they're not here anymore.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy, brother. But dude, again, welcome to the show. And wanted to kind of go over your journey. I mean, I've known you for quite a while. We met somewhere in maybe a salsa festival, maybe one of those salsa festivals where I don't know if it's a Puerto Rican festival or Cuban festival. And right off the bat, I was like, oh man, this cat is cool as hell. Like, dude. And I kept starting to see you at all the festivals. I was like, oh wait, that's Gary. Oh, what? So we've known each other for quite some time. And I know you as a salsa dancer, loving the music, and knowing a little bit about your love for Jiu Jitsu. And we have a friend that we both know really well that we kind of connected to her as well. And I recently, as I mentioned before, found out that you moved out of California. You lived in California most of your life, so you up and it was a shocker to me for you to just decide to move out of the country. And I wanted to kind of get your story there, why you decided to move out to a different country.
The short version is I had been talking about moving for about 10 or 15 years. I've been talking about it, and it's been in the back of my mind about moving. But I have kids, and I was deeply involved in my kids' lives. So, and I mean, taking them to school, picking them up, homework, horrible school plays. My boys played basketball, so I was at basketball games on the weekend. So I didn't have the ability to move because my kids were still small. But I kept saying that once my youngest became self-sufficient, I would try to make that move. And now my youngest boy will be 24 in July.
Wow.
And nice. I moved last year, October. So I went to my kids, I discussed the situation. I said, hey, my youngest, the oldest four are all doing great. So it was just my youngest child was trying to wait till he was self-sufficient. And we kept talking and says, hey, are you going to be okay? Are you going to be okay? And we had a support system in place for him. His brothers, his mother's still there. So he had all these people down to help him out. And I'm only a Skype call away. So after discussing it with them and, looking at various different things on where I wanted to go, how I was going to work this, what I was going to do, I made a decision to go. So I basically I came up with a list of things that I wanted and places I wanted to go. Like what the main thing is I wanted warm weather because living in California the last 30 years, I got used to warm weather year round.
Right.
And I have been traveling to Europe since like the year 2000. So just about every year I would come here to Europe. Right. So I was used to coming to Europe, and I have a ton of friends here from salsa dancing, from coming to salsa congresses. So I have a ton of friends throughout Europe. And I made a list of things that I wanted. And I just went through the list of countries. And as the list got narrower, it came down to Southern Portugal, Southern Spain, and Southern Italy. Because the places I really wanted were like Vienna and Prague were actually my two highest choices. the winters in those two countries are brutal.
Right.
And
Snows. It's
yeah,
so
snow. And
brutal.
I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Brooklyn. I was born and raised in Brooklyn.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that. Oh,
yeah, I was
wow.
born and
Okay.
raised in Brooklyn.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. And I remember cold winters there. And I was like, I want no more part of cold winters.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Vienna and Prague were off the list right away.
Right. Wow.
So yeah.
And it's just, what made you decide? It's just you wanted to move out to Europe, to somewhere, just it's something that you had in the back of your mind for quite some time. Is that what it was? Or
Yeah. Basically, because I had been coming here for, like I said, for the last 20, 22 years. Literally, I've been coming at least when I first started coming in 2000. I came for like 2 weeks.
yeah.
And then each year I would come for longer and longer and longer, to the point where I came once for 4 months. And then I started coming for 3 months, going back to the US for 3 months, coming back for 3 months, coming back to Europe for 3 months. The visa process only allows you to stay in Europe for 90 days.
Right.
And after 90 days, you have to be out of what's called Schengen. So you can stay in Schengen for 90 days, then you have to be out of Schengen for 90 days. Then you could be back in Schengen for 90 days. So I would come for 3 months, stay in Schengen for 90 days, and then I would go home and stay in the US for 3 months. And then as soon as my time was up, I'd come back to Europe, to Schengen for 90 days.
Okay.
Is it
Wow.
90 days? Yes, 90 days. Yeah, 90-day continuous.
And then that's Europe and Portugal.
Yeah, I moved to Portugal.
Okay. So why Portugal? It's just, you've been there, right? Before, you love the country, the beaches are amazing, or
Yeah, I've been to Portugal before quite a few times.
okay.
When I narrowed down my list between southern Portugal, southern Spain, and southern Italy, then my list got even tighter. Okay, so I had to look at an immigration process. Who had the easiest immigration process? Portugal had an easier immigration process than Spain and Italy. I had to look at the
What's
economy.
okay, the economy as well.
I had to look at also how far was the US dollar going to go in all three countries, the cost of living, healthcare, transportation, safety. So it was a whole bunch of factors that kind of played in to my decision. And after plugging in all these different factors, Portugal for me was the best choice.
So what's that process like as far as the immigration compared to every other country in Europe?
Yeah, each country has its own procedure and its own process for you immigrating into their country. For Portugal, Portugal has a variety of visas that you can apply for. So you can apply for a student visa, you can apply for a work visa. I believe they even have what's called a freelance visa. I applied for something called a D7 visa, which typically is for either retired or self-employed people.
Okay.
And basically, you have to prove to the Portuguese government that you're not moving here to get a job. So you won't be taking a job from another Portuguese person. You won't be reliant, the Portuguese government will not have to support you while you're here. You'll be able to support yourself. That's the D7 visa. For me, I found a Portuguese law firm. So I started my process in June. I had an interview with an attorney, and basically they did all the paperwork for me. So they would send an email saying, these are all the documents that we need. I would send them all those documents, and they would just get the ball rolling. And they would say, you have an appointment I had to go to what's called VFS, which is in San Francisco, to hand in all my documents. But basically, my attorney took care of everything.
Nice.
You could do it yourself, but for me, it was much easier to have a professional do it, because doing it yourself, if you miss something, you basically sometimes have to start over again. And I didn't want to have to go through all of that. So I started my process in June of this 2021. I had what's called my VFS appointment in San Francisco in August. I had my temporary visa in September. I moved here in October, and I got my permanent residency visa in January, which is a 5-year visa.
Nice.
So
Awesome.
my process went extremely smooth. My attorney was like, sometimes we have problems. This was a rarity. So if someone is listening to this, I don't want them to think that it's going to go that smooth all the time. But for some reason, mine went through like so quick.
So it depends on the situation and whatnot, right?
Yeah. The thing with me is anytime the attorney asked me for paperwork, I instantly got it back to them. I mean, like right away. There was no delay on anything that they asked for. So it's just a bunch of documents that have to be filed. And so my attorney kept asking. I was like, you literally, if they would ask me for something at noon, by 6, they would have those documents from me.
Right, right. Oh, wow, wow.
So,
and what's the other factors? I mean, can you elaborate on some of the other factors like healthcare and the economy there? And
the biggest thing for me was the economy because I'm still getting paid in US dollars.
okay.
So I wanted a place where the US dollar was going to go a bit further. And the dollar in Portugal, like eating out here is extremely cheap. Going grocery shopping is extremely cheap. The metro is cheap. I don't need a car here. I don't have a car here. Getting around is extremely easy. So the economy was a huge factor. It was a big deal for me coming here. Also, like I said, the weather was great. But for me, also, Portugal is one of these countries where, especially I live in the capital, I live in Lisbon. Lisbon is old world, but also now becoming what's like a modern hub. There are a lot of digital nomads moving to Lisbon, which is good and bad. So you have this old world country, but all this modern stuff inside of it. So it's great.
That's
And
awesome.
the weather is great. I'm literally a 10-minute walk from the river and probably a 30-minute ride from the beach.
Wow. And what's the
So
house? It seems like public transportation is so much better than in
I
California.
yeah, I love well, growing up in Brooklyn, I was used to public transportation being
Right.
efficient. Living in California, transportation isn't very efficient because the city is just so spread out.
Right.
You need a car, as you know, in California. I don't need a car here. I literally either walk every place I need to go or I get on the metro. The metro is safe, it's clean, it's inexpensive. I've never had a problem on the metro. The biggest problem you're gonna have on the metro here is from time to time they go on strike. But they always announce it like a week before.
Right.
So they're going to say next week, Friday, the Metro is going to be on strike from 1 to 3 p.m. Okay. So it's never like you just show up and the train isn't running. They always tell you beforehand. And then they always put all these other mechanisms in place to compensate for the Metro on strike. So they've been on strike, I think, 3 times since I've been here in the last. But I love it. Yeah.
Dude, it sounds like the metro, you can just get anywhere in the city in the metro.
Anywhere.
Even outside of the city if you wanted to.
Yes. Yeah. So there's another city called Kashkai, which is where the beach is at. I take the metro there. It takes me 4 minutes to get by.
And how much does it cost to get there? Like US dollars average?
US dollars, about $3.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. My normal ride around the city is $1.50.
Okay.
So I have a which I don't know where it's at, but anyway, I have a Metro card, and basically I put fares on it, and as long as you're going one way, it only charges you one fare. Okay. So I basically ride around any place I need to go on my Metro card, and I just fill it up at the end of the week. If you fill it up, it gives you a discount. So yeah, it's great. I don't have to deal with cars and gas and oil changes and maintenance and parking and insurance. Plus gas, people, I mean, the US people complain about gas prices being high
Especially
there.
California, man. You got out just in time.
Well, gas prices in Europe have always been high. So I think when I did the conversion, I think gas prices here come out to be about $8.50 a gallon. Okay. So having a car here to me isn't beneficial at all. Plus, I don't need it. So
that's incredible. It's just wow. And as far as what's the food like? You know, what
if you
are
love
some of
seafood,
the differences in food and cuisine there?
if you like seafood, then you're gonna love Lisbon because it's right on the sea, a lot of coastline, so a lot of seafood, octopus, sardines.
Nice.
Yeah, so if you're in love with seafood, this is a place to be for sure. But it's like any other. It's not a big city, but it's a small city with a lot of variety. So you can find pretty much any type of food that you want. So there's a local Italian restaurant that I go to from time to time. There's a Greek restaurant. There's a Thai restaurant. So um, you'll find a variety of restaurants depending on what you want and where you want to eat. So most of the time I try to eat local most of the time to the neighborhood that I'm living in to support the local economy.
Nice.
So yeah.
That is awesome. Okay. I was just
Yeah,
kind of
it's good.
curious. So a lot of seafood because you're right there by the ocean. You're 30 minutes
Right.
away from the ocean. That makes sense.
Lots of seafood. You go in the supermarket and you see fresh fish in the supermarkets, but they have these mercados where they're just these huge buildings, and all that's inside them is fresh fruit and fresh fish, and they're set up all over the place. And you walk in and you'll see maybe the catch of the day. So
Wow.
it's lovely. Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
And what are some things that or traditions that you see that are done differently there than just say California? You know, like for instance,
Ah,
give you an example. In Italy, I have a friend of mine in Italy that she said one time that it's so crazy. You go into the grocery store and women just get dressed up. They put on their high heels to go to the grocery store. That's kind of like the culture there as well. And I was like, really? It's like everyone gets dressed up to go to the grocery store. I don't know if it's a way to pick up, the opposite sex or but that happens in Milan, and I just found it very fascinating. So, have you seen any kind of differences there as opposed to culturally compared to California or New York?
it's funny you say grocery store because at the grocery stores, I always seem to notice don't be in a hurry when you're at the grocery store. Because if there's an older lady or man in front of you in line and the checker or the cashier gets to that person, they're going to have a conversation. I don't care how long the line is. They're gonna ask how you doing today? How are the grandkids? How is this? How is that? And I'm like, I don't believe this cashier is having this conversation with this older person. And it's like the line is 10 or 15 people deep and they don't care. But at some aspect, I guess for some of the older community, that's maybe some of the contact that they have, some of the communications that they have with people. And this happens so often that now I'm just used to it. Or I'll try to get into a line where there are no older people in front of me. And they just sit there for like 5 or 10 minutes. And yeah, the grandson is good and my papa is good. I'm like, really? Like in California, we're so used to everybody like, let's go, ring your stuff up, let's get out of here, let's go. No, doesn't happen. No,
In
I'm like, oh,
California, if yeah, right. In California, if you're in that line for about 2 minutes longer, everyone's staring at you. What are you doing, man? Come on,
exactly.
move it.
Right. No, not here. No, doesn't happen. And the amount of older people that I see walking around, I don't know if Lisbon is a very, very hilly city. I don't care where you live at the top of a hill. Doesn't matter. So the amount of older people that I see still walking around and vibrant and getting around is amazing. Unbelievable. These people have to be in their 70s and 80s and they're walking up and down these hills. They're not doing it fast, but they're still doing it. It's just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long have you been now there?
I moved here October 18th, 2021. So it's been 7 months, almost 7 months. Okay. So yeah, I have a 5-year visa. So I get to stay here 5 years.
5 years, okay.
And at the end of 5 years, I have an option of trying to renew it for 5 years, or applying for permanent residency.
Okay.
And
Wow.
at that time, I'll decide what I'm going to do. If you ask me right now, I would say I'm probably going to apply for permanent residency.
Wow.
If
That's
you ask
awesome.
me right now, yeah. So I speak no Portuguese though, so you have to take a test in Portuguese at 5 years, a competency test in 5 years. So, but I'm learning the language now.
I'm glad you brought that up. What are Portuguese? That language is to some people, it's very difficult to learn.
Yes.
And I have a friend who met a girl, Hermosa Beach, many years ago, and decided to move to Europe. I believe he went to France. Didn't know how to speak French at all, and it took him. He said it was a challenge to learn the culture and the language, and you know, how have you adapted there? I know Portuguese is definitely, I've heard it's a tough language to learn.
Yeah. I think the toughest thing was I moved during the pandemic. That was probably the toughest thing. So I would tell anybody that was thinking about moving, and keep in mind, I knew no one in Portugal when I moved. I know two people from Portugal, but now one lives in Dublin, Ireland, and one lives in the Czech Republic. He lives in Prague. So the two people that I know that are from here don't even live here anymore. So I moved here actually knowing absolutely no one. I think the biggest challenge was moving during the pandemic because everything was shut down. So for example, I salsa dance. So normally if I had come to a new city, I would go out salsa dancing and I would start creating a new community of people that I knew salsa dancing.
Right.
So I also dance tango. So I would go to tango and create a community from tango, go to Jiu Jitsu, create a community from Jiu Jitsu and judo. So these normal circles of communities that I would start creating, I wasn't able to create in October when I moved because everything was shut down because of COVID. So from October to almost December, I wasn't able to start creating these interactions with other people. So I wasn't really even able to start picking up the language from talking to other people. So I was studying on my own, but for me, I learned better when I'm interacting with somebody and just having people talk to me and asking people questions and things like that. So finally in January, things started opening up. So now I have a place where I go to tango 2 or 3 nights a week. Still haven't found any good salsa here yet though. So, but now I go to jujitsu 3 nights a week. I found a judo school. So I'm slowly creating a community of people that I know, questions to ask. How do you say this? How do you do this? Where do you go here? There's an older guy I know from, I joined a gym here. So I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, older guy there that I met. And he's always, oh, if you need to do this is what you do. So it's important that to create those type of communities and meet those type of people to kind of help you along while you're here, because it can get tough if you don't know anybody and you're not able to create those relationships with anybody else.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you said during COVID, I mean, you moved there during COVID, which is just a scary thing to do, not knowing what's happening in that country. So it seems like our country was locked down. What does that mean exactly? Were stores still open, nightclubs, bars, restaurants completely closed, or
yes,
how was that
essentials were
like?
open. Essentials were open, so grocery stores were open, like pharmacies, things like that. But non-essentials, like nightclubs, no. So for me, there was no jujitsu. All the gyms were closed. There was no tango. There was no salsa. All the bars and stuff were shut down. You basically for the first from October to December, I basically went grocery shopping, came back to my apartment, and wandered around the city, looking around, trying to find my way around places. It was fully masked on all public transportation the entire time. So, and it's funny, Portugal had a different, it's funny coming from the US and coming to Portugal, dealing with COVID, the mindset was completely different. So people here just kind of got on board with it because I think very early on during the pandemic, Portugal got hit really, really bad. And the rates of COVID cases was really high. When the second wave came around, people were on board, like, look, we will do whatever we need to do so it doesn't get this bad again. So people just complied. It's very rare. I think in 7 months I've been on the metro, I've seen 2 people not wearing a mask during the mandated times. In grocery stores, people wore them. People just did it. They didn't complain about it. They just did it.
Yeah.
And the
How about now?
mindset.
Are you still seeing people wearing the mask? The I just came back from Colombia and the same thing. Right now in Colombia, everyone's wearing a mask currently right now.
It's not mandated. It's mandated still on the metro, but not mandated in like grocery stores. And you still see people wearing them. So yeah. You don't have to wear them in stores, but people still do. The mindset here is completely different. So the perfect example is there's a guy I know from Jiu Jitsu, from the Jiu Jitsu school that I go to, and he didn't want to get the COVID shot. And this is not political. This is just a story. Right. He didn't want to get the COVID shot. And I said, well, that's your choice. If you don't want to get it, that's fine. He says, no, I did get it though. I was like, I thought you said you didn't want to get it. He says, no, I didn't want to get it, but I know it was better for the sake of the country that I get it. So I got it.
Right.
And it was just a completely different mindset from when I left the US, where everything was about, me. He was like, I don't want this, but I know for the sake of the country in general, it's better that I get it. So I'm going to get it.
Right.
So that kind of hit me like, wow, okay, that's not what I'm used to hearing coming from the US,
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's definitely a little different. Now, I had no idea that the country got hit hard with COVID.
Yeah, they had to get assistance from other countries. It was so bad. So they had to get ventilators from other countries. So, but the second wave, they were a lot better. They were a lot more prepared.
Yeah, right. So, oh man, jeez, dude. And
how? Right moving during a pandemic is a little bit. I wouldn't do it again.
Right.
Yeah,
that was crazy. And I remember when you told me that for last time I spoke with you, I just moved to Portugal. I'm like, what? That's the thing I thought of. This is the middle of the pandemic and you move? You fucking nuts? What the fuck's he doing? I was puzzled after I hung up with you and we were talking. I was like, really? What's this? What are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was the rate of infections was lower at the time that I moved. The rates of infection was lower in Portugal than it was in the US. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I moved to a safer place. And on top of that, since I was moving to a place where I didn't know anybody, I was like completely isolated.
Right.
And everything was closed. So I basically, like I said, I went from home to the grocery store, back home, and I wandered around the city, just trying to figure out where everything is, how I get here, what do I do there, stuff like that. So, yeah.
So what do you do for work? You say you work on, you're able to get a visa to work for yourself. You work online?
I work online, yeah. I work online. I've been working online for, I don't know, over 10 years. Before working online was popular, I was working online. So for me, it was easy because it allowed me to travel. Even before I moved, it allowed me to travel, work online, do what I need to do, and then still go hang out. So that's why usually during the summers, I was able to come to Europe for 3 or 4 months at a time, because I was able to still at least work during that time frame and then hang out in the evenings. So that's the biggest thing. If you can find a way to generate income and not be tied to a desk, then the move becomes extremely easy.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And do you work for yourself, or do you work for a company in California or a company that's based in the US?
Self-employed. So I have a partner who still lives in California. So my partner does a certain aspect of the business, and I do a certain aspect of the business. And then we just basically, email each other and talk. We talk probably once or twice a week. So it has no effect on where I'm at. Actually, being here and working online for me is a benefit, because I do, some of my work is time stamped. I have to have it by a certain deadline. Well, I'm 8 hours ahead of California time. So when I read an email saying this needs to be done by a certain time, if I keep that same time in my mind as this time, I'm always going to be 8 hours ahead of getting it done. So yeah, for me, it works out perfectly.
Right, because it sounds like a lot of your business is conducted in the Pacific time zone.
95% of it is. Yep.
So
95%.
Okay, so then wow, so if I need this done by 5 today,
right,
that would be what, 11 a.m. that 11 p.m. that day?
At 8 hours on, whatever 8 hours on is.
Oh, so it's 8 hours. Okay. Wow.
8 hours on, yes.
So wait, so
I'm
you're
8 hours ahead
of California.
of California. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
So for me, it works out perfectly.
Wow, that's awesome.
So,
so that makes a lot of sense, and that's one of the reasons why it was easy to get a visa there in Portugal. So
yeah, I could prove to the Portuguese government that, hey, I don't need to rely on your assistance for anything. Now, although I do use their healthcare, but that's
and how does their
available.
healthcare work? Compared to the healthcare here, I'm sure it's better than healthcare in the U.S. I'm dying to know this question for all those
I'll
people.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah, for the people that fight both politically on the left and on the right, let's hear the healthcare in Portugal. I'm dying to know this.
Okay, here's two funny stories. When I was applying for my visa, my D7 visa, I had to buy 6 months of insurance to cover myself, because you can't be on the Portuguese health system when you first come here. You have to prove that you can you can pay for your own medical care.
Right.
So I got in touch with an insurance agent, for a healthcare insurance agent, and she says, okay, Gary, we can get you 6 months of insurance, and it's going to be, you need 6 months, it'll be $600. And I was like, wow, $600, that's kind of steep, but okay, if I have to pay it, I'll pay it. So I'm going to think it's $600 a month for 6 months. She said, after the 6 months, you can go into the public healthcare system and you won't have to pay the 600 anymore. I said, that's great. So I says, can I pay the 600 a month, or do I have to pay you for the whole 6 months up front? And she was like, no, you don't understand. It's not 600 a month. It's 600 for 6 months. So, whoa. Yeah. So I thought she was saying, yeah, that's what I said. I thought she was quoting me the per month price of $600 per month for 6 months.
Right.
And she was like, no. The healthcare system that I'm selling you is 600 for 6 months. So I paid $600 to be on the healthcare system in Portugal for 6 months. And then technically after 4 months, you can apply for the internal healthcare system, which is free.
Wait, so you pay about $100 a month. What exactly does that cover?
It covered anything dealing with COVID. Okay. It covered hospital stays. It covered emergency care. There was a list of things that she gave me a list that it covered. I don't have the list with me. Had I knew you was going to ask me that question, I would have brought it with me. But yeah, it basically covered having to go to the hospital for just about anything. Now, it doesn't cover, obviously, if you had cancer or something like that. No. And the deductibles were extremely small. So that's what I paid for 6 months. And after 4 months, technically after 4 months, I get to apply for the free healthcare system where I don't even have to pay that 600 anymore.
So have you applied for that? Because aren't you in your 5th month?
Yeah, I'm in my 6th month. I just haven't applied yet. My old policy just expired. So I need to go, now that you said that, I need to go down and apply for my in-house residency health insurance. Actually, I will do that this week, now that you brought it up.
That's incredible, $100.
And it's free. Yeah, it's free.
Now
you can buy additional coverage if you want. You could buy additional coverage, but if you're relatively healthy and don't really have any problems, the normal health care that they provide, the Portuguese government provide, is good. So
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so healthcare
Wow,
is
that's
free healthcare. I guess people would say it was socialized medicine, but yeah, it's free.
that's exactly what people would say. But
Yeah.
how are the taxes there? You pay a little bit more in taxes to cover that
For
health
me,
insurance there for
for
people
me,
that
the
live
the
there?
cost, yeah, for me, the cost of living is so cheap compared to California that the taxes aren't a big deal for me.
What's the rent like there, or mortgage, or how does that whole thing work?
I'm currently renting, so I only rent fully furnished apartments because I planned on moving. So this is actually the apartment I'm in now. Is the second apartment that I'm living in since I've been here, because I wanted to move to different areas of the city to kind of get a feel for what it was like to live downtown. What is it like to live in a purely residential area? What is it like to live in a party area? So just to get a feel for different neighborhoods. Rent is compared to, depending on where you live, compared to California, is extremely cheap. For the average Portuguese person, the rent is high. And that has to do mainly with, unfortunately, people like myself that can come to Portugal and that can afford to pay a higher rent cost. So it drives the rent prices up. Do you need
Gentrification.
light? I'm sorry. Do you need light in here? Is it getting too dark for you?
No, no, it's fine. You know,
Okay.
so that what's a form of gentrification in a sense.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It
Yeah.
sucks. It really does suck. So, and it's one of the things that I can honestly say that I'm torn about here, because I had a guy from Jiu Jitsu come, he came to my apartment a few months ago, my old apartment, and he saw what I was paying and he was like, oh my God, like a Portuguese person would never pay this much. So, and they know they can charge like people from the UK, people from the US more, and we're willing to pay it because the places that we're coming from is still a great deal.
It's so much higher still.
Yeah, yeah. So for example, I live in here's a 2 bedroom, 2 bath, full kitchen, laundry room, dining room, city center, 10 minutes from the river, and rent is 1,350 euro, which comes out to be about 1,400, 1,450. This same place in Long Beach, where we both know each other from, would probably be 23,
Right.
25 easily.
25. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a
25.
friend living in a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and a huge complex 2 miles from the beach, and they're paying 2,000 a month.
Wow. So what is the
So for
normal?
me,
What's the
the rents
normal
are
rent?
cheap.
So what's the normal rent for a Portuguese citizen? Would it be half of
Um,
100 typically? Maybe
Probably. So the building I was,
600.
yeah, the building I was living in before this, it was a 4-story building.
Mhm.
The apartment I had was completely rehabbed. I mean, completely rehabbed in and out. Everything in the apartment was brand new. And in that building, I was paying 1,250 euro a month. I saw the apartment below mine that wasn't rehabbed, and they were paying, I think the guy said it was like 600 euro a month. But if you went to his apartment and then you went into my apartment, you would think you were in completely two different buildings, completely different buildings.
Wow.
So
And
it makes a big difference.
what's the mortgage like? So for instance, if you decide to permanently live there and you want to purchase a property, what's that like? What's that process like? Do you have to be a
I
citizen?
don't, yes, don't quote me on this. I don't think they give mortgages at this point in time to US or British citizens. You have to pay cash basically, or pull the money from obviously someplace else. I did read that they were talking about setting up some sort of mortgage situation for non-residences, but I don't know what the process. For me, that's so far down the line. I hadn't even looked into it yet. So for now, I'm happy to rent.
Wow. So you have to outright buy it. Okay. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So Yeah, for me, it's easier to rent fully furnished apartments because when I want to go, I don't have to take a bunch of stuff with me.
Yeah, and at the same time, you get to discover new regions and new cities and really kind of get a feel, as you said, the way
exactly
those different communities live. So it's really, really interesting.
Right. So next year I'll probably move 3 hours north of right now I live in Lisbon, which is the capital. But next year I plan on moving to a city called Porto. So I'll probably move to Porto next year. Yeah.
Porto. Okay.
So I'll probably live there for a year and see how I like it up there. And then after moving around, if I kind of get settled, I'll determine, okay, I like this area and this city much better. And that's where I'll probably move permanently. But right now I'm kind of hopping around every year. And since I rent furnished apartments, I don't have to worry about moving, couches and cabinets and furniture. And it's just basically my clothes and suitcases that I pack up. And then I move to the next place.
You said the weather is very comparable to LA. I know you moved there and you were there during the quote unquote winter months of December. How is the weather there in December? Do you even have a winter? Does it even get cold there? How cold does it get?
It's going to get cold compared to someone that lives in California. So I think it got down to maybe the 40s in the evenings.
Okay.
Maybe. It never got below freezing. Never got below 32.
Okay.
I think I'm trying to think because it was all in Celsius. It got down to like 10, 11, 12 in the evening sometimes Celsius, which I don't know what the conversions are. But growing up in New York, it was not cold here at all.
Yeah. Okay.
This was perfect. I have a light jacket that I wore the entire winter. Is what I wore the entire winter. A light jacket, a scarf, and a beanie. That's all I needed. I didn't need a winter coat. I didn't need gloves. I didn't need any of that.
Oh wow. Wow. And you've been there how long now? 3 months?
I moved
months?
in October, so going on 7 months now.
7 months. So how's your Portuguese now compared to 7 months
My Portuguese is horrible. Horrible. Yeah. and that's being kind. Saying that it's horrible is being kind. Yeah. So now I'm starting to take it more. It's funny you said. Now I'm starting to take it more serious. I keep a notebook and a pad of when I talk to people, like how do you say and how do you do this and how do you say that. So yeah. And I'll probably start taking formal lessons in August. So I say August because I have some trips planned between now and then. I'm going to be in out the country. So,
is there any words that you tried to use and you butchered and people misinterpreted or
oh my God.
Because any memorable experiences? Because I want to share. A cousin of mine went to Spain and then she was at a bar and she asked for a pluma, which in Spanish, pluma is pin. However, I guess in Spain, pluma means a gay person. Right. So she's in the bar asking for a pluma to write another person's number down. So the bartender's looking at her all crazy. What? You're looking for a pluma? Yes. And then the bartender said something along the lines like, "You're looking. This is not the right bar. You have to go down the street." He's like, "What do you mean? I got to go down the street? I just want something to write." And then she made a gesture with her, and then the bar is like, "Oh, you mean a bolígrafo? That is what pen is here. Pluma in Spain means a gay person or something." So she had no idea. So she shared that with me, and I thought it was hilarious. It was just the different words, play on something.
Right.
Did you have any kind of that experience or trying to learn something or say a word? Or?
No, not really. Just not being understood. So I haven't butchered it so bad that people couldn't understand. I mean, people didn't understand what I was saying, but they didn't misinterpret what I was saying for something else. So it's always like they're just looking at you like, what? Like they have no idea what you're trying to say, So yeah, it's weird. The funny thing is that people will speak to you in Portuguese because they think you're Portuguese. You're from here.
Right.
So it's one of these places where when you see everybody, you really can't tell if they're from here or not. So they just automatically speak to you in Portuguese. They're like, no Portuguese. I was like, no, mas no fala português. It's like, por qué? I'm like, I'm not Portuguese. I'm not Portuguese. It's like, you're not Portuguese. Like, how can you not be Portuguese? Like, I'm not Portuguese. I've gotten people thought I was. Here's the funniest story that I was on a bus one day talking to some guy started a conversation with me, and he says, wow, your English is really, really good. Like your accent is really, really good. I'm like, my accent is really good. He says, yeah, you have a really good English accent. And I said, because, I'm an American. I was born in America. And he was like, no. And I was like, yeah. Like, what did you think it was? He's like, oh, I thought you was Brazilian. So there are so many Brazilians, people from like Angola, from Mozambique, from former colonies of Portugal, that so many people look like me here that they just automatically think that I'm from one of those colonial countries or from Brazil. So they just automatically start speaking Portuguese to you. So, but yeah, my Portuguese is horrible. Hilarious. It's just horrible.
Oh my God.
But I vow to make it better. Yeah, I said this year I was going to take it more serious. So now I'm taking it more serious. And I am butchering it as I speak to people. I had a conversation today with a guy for about 30 minutes. I was sitting at a park. This old man sat down. He started talking to me in Portuguese. And we had a conversation for 30 minutes. And I have no idea what we talked about for 30 minutes. No idea. I use the 12 words that I know, and the more I try to explain to him that I only speak a little Portuguese, the faster he spoke and the wider range of topics he started speaking about. And I was like, I don't know what we just got finished talking about, but I have to go now, He said, okay, obrigado. So yeah, quite funny. But very, very friendly people. Very, very friendly people.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that because you're hearing Portuguese so much, have you bumped into a person that's talking full English and you're like, whoa, hey, hey, I can talk that. Wait, come here. Where are you from? Because I would imagine that you've been overwhelmed with Portuguese. If you hear English, like, what?
Yeah, you hear it. There are a lot of expats here, so a lot of people. Portugal is supposed to be they call it the California of Europe. So since the cost of living is so great, there are a lot of retirees that come to Portugal. So I do hear English here. I understood what they were saying, So yeah, it's quite odd to hear it. So. Yeah, it's funny to be out and all of a sudden I start hearing English. I'm like, okay.
You're like,
yeah. It's funny how your ear tunes into.
And you said you haven't found a salsa club, or is there not many good salsa clubs there yet, or maybe they haven't opened up? Really?
No, I think it's mostly Kizomba.
Kizomba? Okay.
It's mostly a lot of that, which I don't really dance Kizomba. But for me, there's a lot of tango. So there's tango 3 or 4 nights a week. So I go to tango mostly. But I haven't found any good salsa clubs yet.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. But the upside is Lisbon has an international airport. So I travel at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. Cool. So I've been to Spain for tango. I've been to Poland for tango. I've been to Germany for tango. So yeah, I get to get out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
Is there something that you do miss from LA? I know you've been gone from LA or California for quite some time. Is there people, restaurants, an environment that you miss the most? Long Beach? What is it? The top 5 things you miss.
Chick-fil-A.
Really? That's number one. It's a good fucking chicken sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A. It's so funny because I didn't.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, because even when I was there, I didn't eat there very often.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I can't have it, it's like, man, I would die for a Chick-fil-A sandwich right now. So definitely Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A popped in my mind one day. I was like, man, I'd like to have a Chick-fil-A sandwich right now. Um, I mean, taking out of the equation stuff like my kids and stuff like that. Take that out of the equation. Obviously, I miss my kids sometimes.
Obviously,
Not,
no, that's right.
right. So
Given,
taking
right?
out of the equation. I don't miss the beach because I have the beach here.
Okay.
So that doesn't really come into play. Certain types of food I don't really miss because I have those here. It's that really, honestly, that sounds horrible. The only thing that I could say, discounting people, restaurant wise, I miss is Chick-fil-A, and that's only a little.
So what I'm getting from this is the one thing that you miss from the US
Right.
is Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. But I wouldn't want a Chick-fil-A to open here though.
That's a plug for Chick-fil-A, by the way.
I would not want them to open one here. Would not.
Why not? You would go there. That would be the first place you would go.
Yeah, but then it kind of gets me being back like I'm back home again. It's okay to miss that.
Right.
You know, I don't want everything that was in LA to be here. If that's the case, I might as well just stay in LA. So even though I miss it, I don't want one to pop up here. No.
If I knew this, I would have gone to the Chick-fil-A. It's about a mile from here. I could have got one. Look at this. I would have been so wrong.
Oh man, I'd be like, man, he's got a Chick-fil-A sandwich. Yeah, I can't really there's not a lot of stuff that I miss. Outside of
I don't eat there that often. I have to agree with you. I don't eat there that often, but the times that I do,
right, it's delicious.
Chicken sandwich.
Yeah, it's delicious. Yeah, it is definitely. There isn't much more that I really miss. I mean, like I said, outside of people, no. I mean, there's a lot more calmness, and the pace of life is a lot slower for me. So for me, I enjoy it. It's great. And for me, since I have so many friends in Europe, and now that things are opening back up, I'm able to travel and hang out. Like I said, I was in 2 weeks ago, I was in Warsaw, Poland for a tango event. This Thursday, I go to Berlin for a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm able to kind of hop around and do things and see people. I have a ton of friends in Vienna that I'll probably go see in June. July, I'll be back in California visiting my kids. I'll be in New York for a week and in California for 4 weeks visiting my father and my kids. So
you know where you have to stop in July.
Well, in July in California?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
You got to stop by that Chick-fil-A. Man.
I definitely. It's already on the list.
And then going to Berlin and Vienna and Warsaw in the next month or so, there's definitely a lot of salsa clubs out there, dude. So
yeah. I go there mostly for tango. But for me, Berlin has good salsa, so I go dancing there for salsa. It's great. Yeah, it's for me. I have the freedom to move around. Unfortunately, this is not political. Unfortunately, this war between Ukraine and Russia has stopped me from being able to travel to like places like Russia and Belarus. So those were some of my favorite places to go tango dancing. But and I have a well, it doesn't matter. I have a visa to enter Russia, but I won't use it, obviously, because the situation is just too sketchy right now to be hanging out there. So but there's still a ton of other places I go.
Yeah, maybe after the war is over. I mean, that's one place I've always wanted to visit, to be honest. And politics aside, I've always wanted to visit Russia.
Yeah.
And Alex and I have talked about that. It'd be awesome to visit Russia. And it's again, it's saying that today, what, you want to go there? No,
Yeah.
but yeah, because I know the
Yeah.
dancing is incredible there. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have quite a few friends in Moscow and St. Petersburg that I've known for 12, 15 years. I mean,
yeah.
way back in the day when the L.A Salsa Congress was huge, run by Albert Torres,
Albert,
and
right.
it was like the Congress to be at. Friends would come from Russia and they would stay with me, and we would all hang out. And so I met all these people during dancing, and so I kept in contact with them. So I've been to St. Petersburg to kind of hang out and visit. And so yeah, I love the country. The people themselves I absolutely love. It's unfortunate that with the politics now, I'm not able to go. So like I said, there in Belarus, I'm not able to go now, or obviously, or Ukraine either. So
Right. Yeah, it's a tough time right now. So
brother,
no
can
one
you still
wants
see me?
war.
Or am I disappearing completely with no light?
A little bit, but no, it's all good. It's all good.
Okay.
Well, dude, what it sounds like you're having a great time out there, and I really respect your move and making a big decision, because it's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you on the show. It's because you kind of just hear your story is why you just uprooted and just left LA, and to hear what you did. I think your story will serve as an inspiration to a lot of people, because I know there's people in LA, or all around the US, that probably have that seed, like, oh, I want to just go to Spain and live there. I want to go
Right.
here, but they
Right.
just don't do it for some reason
Right.
or another. So to kind of get some insight as to, why you did it and how you're able to do it, I think will serve as a nice little inspiration for people to listen to.
Yeah, I would tell people to make a set plan, like make a list of the thing that they wanted, like in a place that they wanted to move, and then just be very realistic about that list. You're not going to get everything that you want. It's just almost everything you want, but make a list of like and prioritize it. Like these are the top things that I want. And the second thing I would tell people to do is, I always say, visiting a place on vacation and living in a place is two completely different things. Going on vacation in Lisbon for 2 weeks is not like living in Lisbon for 2 years, because that whole fantasy of going to the lift and going to Bel M and going to the tower,
Right.
that wears off very, very quickly. And then you have to settle into everyday life of going to the grocery store and going shopping, and where's the dry cleanings at, and how do I do this, and where's my Metro card. So that stuff happens very, very fast. So the whole romanticize of being in a country on vacation is not the same as living in a country. So I would never just make a move to a country without at least spending 3 or 4 months there, if possible. So I had been to Lisbon, not 3 months straight, but I had coming here. When I would come to Europe, I had a base, a place I would stay. Mostly I stayed in Vienna, mostly. I had a good friend that I could stay with in Vienna, and I would leave all my luggage in Vienna, take a small bag, and come to Lisbon for a week or two, and then go back, and then maybe go to Prague for 2 or 3 weeks, and then go back. And then I would do that every year. And I said, well, Lisbon seems like a possible place. Then I would go to Spain, and I just kept doing that. And then when I made my list, I said, well, I think I could do Lisbon. So yeah, so I had an idea of what it was going to be like before I got here, but even having an idea of what I thought it was going to be like, it's still a bit different.
That's really some good advice for those people listening. And I'm sure you found a lot of resources online on Google, and to find out.
Ton, yeah. There are a lot of expat communities for whatever country you're moving to, or you want to move to. There's probably an expat community already in that country. And so I found about 3 or 4 online expat communities for Portugal, and I joined them all on like YouTube and subscribed and looked at all the videos and looked at the process and all the problems they had and the things that they encountered, what to prepare for. It just helped me prepare each and every time. So it made the transition a lot more smoother.
That's awesome, dude. That's so cool, dude. Well, I know we're getting to an hour here, but bro, I want to thank you for being on the show. I think everything that we talked about was really insightful. It really inspired me to take a trip. I definitely want to come out and visit you and experience that the Portugal life.
Well, you and Alex are welcome. I'll be here.
Awesome, brother. Well,
all right.
Brother, yeah, it was great talking to you, brother. It's great to touch base and connect. And thank you for sharing your story, brother.
Anytime, brother. All right. You, brother. All right. Take care.
All right, brother. Peace, Gary. We'll be in touch soon, brother. Miss you, man.
All right. Later.
Chick-fil-A forever, brother.